So it's very fashionable these days to not have a lot of time for small talk. There's that kind of phrase, isn't there? Like, I don't do small talk. And when people say that, what they're usually trying to say is something like, well, I'm too interesting a person to do small talk, to talk about menial things. I only want to talk about sort of important stuff that's more important than what small talk typically is. And this is quite fashionable, right? But I think it's a problem that this is a fashion, because it means that people have misunderstood what small talk is all about. And if you don't understand the purpose of small talk, I think that often means you don't have a very clear understanding of how to socialise properly. And so in this video, basically what I'm going to do is just tell you about basically small talk is not a bad thing. It's a good thing when used effectively. And the trouble is, we've got this kind of weird situation in society where I feel like we're all quite withdrawn at the moment, and a lot of us don't really say what we mean, what we think, and so we end up kind of having too much small talk, more small talk than we should. So anyway, small talk. Basically, the way I understand it is when we forget that we were tribal creatures, several hundreds of thousands of years ago, right? And those instincts are still within us, where we kind of have, the way we sort of see people is we either see them as sort of friend or foe. Now this is what we do when we meet a stranger, is we're trying to figure out whether they're a friend or a foe. And basically, the safe thing to do is to assume that they're a foe, assume that they're hostile, that they're an enemy, that they're an other, until you have some evidence to provide to the contrary. Part of the reason why I think we're all so sort of closed off and we're all not very happy with our social lives at the moment, I think, is just because we're constantly surrounded by unknowns, people who aren't really friends or aren't really foes at the same time. Like you go to the gym and you're surrounded by people who you don't really know, you don't interact with them, so you don't know if they're going to be hostile to you or whether they're friendly, right? And you get on the tube, you get on the bus, and you don't know if everyone around you is a friend or a foe or whatever. And so that's very interesting. But basically, what we need is some small and kind of quite easy way of telling whether someone is a friend or foe, right? And this is where small talk comes in. Small talk comes in and, you have a quick conversation with someone about something very trivial and something that isn't too much, isn't too sort of intense or too heavy. It's not that conversation in of itself is super interesting and super insightful and clever or whatever, but it's just that's enough to know that that person is a friend, that you're not. That's basically what you're doing when you're engaging in small talk. Of course, no one's actually that interested in what the weather is or what you're having for lunch or some random thing that you talk about in small talk. Of course, no one's actually that interested in it. All you're doing is you're just basically assessing if you're cool with that person by having almost kind of pretend conversation with them, because that's what you do with your friends, right? You have a conversation with them. So you're like, okay, is this someone that I'm gonna have a conversation with? Oh yeah, looks like I am. Brilliant. So anyway, the reason I'm making this video is because I think we don't realise that that's the function that small talk serves. I believe that small talk starts and ends with that, just basically establishing if you're cool with someone. And small talk doesn't really have very much benefit beyond that. It's very useful for that specific stage, but beyond that, it doesn't serve its function anymore. The trouble is, most people don't realise that what small talk's for. So they'll keep on having small talk long after the necessity for it has gone. You know, are there people that you know, who you hang out with or you see about, that you just find you constantly have lots of small talk with? Well, the likelihood is you're probably having too much small talk. You've maxed out the need for small talk, and you need to start having real conversations with them. We're not, like, yes, small talk is very useful for that specific thing, but beyond that, you've got to start having real conversations with people about things that are actually interesting to you, and you've got to basically speak your mind as much as possible. And once you've broken that first bit of ice, you've done that first bit of small talk, you need to slowly start getting into real conversations. And this is what we just don't do in life, you know. We just keep having those shallow, small talk conversations long after we've gone, long after they're finished. And it's a problem. And I think the reason why that it's fashionable to say we don't do small talk, whatever, is because we have forgotten that, like, obviously small talk is a bit boring. Like, no one ever said it was interesting. But the thing is, it has a specific purpose, and then you upgrade to those deeper levels of conversation. I just think so many of us get stuck with people we're kind of acquainted with just sort of shallow small talk, you know, long after the use is gone, and we just never really get into the heart of it. We never really talk about things that we're actually interested in. But we should. And I think basically the purpose of the video is, like, just recognise that after that initial stage, small talk doesn't serve us anymore. We need to start having more profound, more interesting conversations. And we need to be able to speak our minds more as well. So, yeah, that's basically it, guys. Thanks for watching as always. And I'm doing some coaching at the moment, so it'd be great to hear from you if you're interested. Just click the top link in the description. And apart from that, see you in the next one.